My administration is acting with unprecedented speed to fix the disasters we've inherited from a totally inept group of people and to solve every single crisis facing our country. This begins with confronting the economic chaos caused by the failed policies of the last administration.
That was President Trump addressing the World Economic Forum yesterday. We've heard a lot from the president this week. How much? Well, I asked our intrepid research staff to exactly explain how much. The total, 4 hours and 56 minutes as of this Friday here in Washington this afternoon. 4 hours, 56 minutes of utterances from President Trump. One of the recurrent themes, the U.S. economy and how to improve it. Republican Congressman Don Bacon joins me now. He has represented Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, that's Omaha and environs, since 2017. 2017 is also an important year in the first Trump presidency. That's when the tax cuts went into effect late that year, 2017. So, Congressman, first question. When this new Congress considers what to do about the Trump tax cuts due to expire, do you imagine it will just do that or add other tax cuts on top of those?
I think it'll be largely the tax cuts for 2017, but there will be some tweaks to it. Like, for example, the president has campaigned on reducing taxes for those who get tips, like our waiters and waitresses, and really the working class people in our country voted heavily for President Trump, and I think he's going to want to ensure that that's added in there. In fact, I have a bill that does reduce taxes on tips and also for overtime and working 2 jobs. I just think people trying to get ahead, we shouldn't put them into a higher tax bracket. But there'll be some of that added in there. I think the biggest challenge on the Republican side, or at least, and I think a lot of Democrats would agree with this, is how we're going to handle salt. Salt is a hand grenade in this whole discussion. It's, a lot of folks who are from poor or lower tax states don't want to adjust the salt. But from the Northeast or California, salt's a deal breaker. So that's something we're going to have to work our way through.
And for the benefit of my audience, Congressman, indulge me for just a second. Salt, in this context, is not what you put on your food. It is state and local tax deductions, currently capped at $10,000 per year. Those in high tax states, meaning states with high taxes in their jurisdiction, want that cap raised to better allow the residents of those states, New Jersey, New York, California, just to name 3, get along better economically. That's a fair summarization, is it not, Congressman?
No, you're absolutely right. And I do think it should be adjusted. I mean, I'm from, Nebraska, and we have a fairly high property taxes here, nothing like what you see in New York or New Jersey. But I do think having $10,000, and that was done in 2017, when you don't adjust for inflation, $10,000 today is not the same as $10,000 in 2017. And I think we should at least raise those caps or adjust them for inflation. Or I think we should also look at a marriage salt rate where if you're married, you get $20,000 or it's double. So there's some things I think we can do, but it's expensive.
Sure. And you had a conversation with President Trump with some of the advocates for those kind of alterations this week. How did that go?
I do believe the president's committed to adjusting salt. What that looks like, I don't know. I mean, some folks, even on the Republican side, but I would tell you on the Democrat side, they would want no salt cap at all. I mean, endless deduction. I don't think that's going to happen because that's too expensive and that takes away the ability to, keep everybody else's taxes lower. But I do know it's going to be adjusted. That's just a fact of life. Whether it goes to $20,000 or $30,000 or we do a marriage-based tax rate, there's going to be an adjustment there. And one, I think it's right, but 2, it's reality. If we want to get these tax cuts extended, this is going to have to be fixed.
And, Congressman, you've indicated the concern about the expense of these tax cuts. President Trump has suggested that some of the way to pay for them is revenue generated by tariffs. Do you believe that that tariff revenue can offset the costs? And those tariffs will not just then be passed on to American consumers in terms of higher prices?
Yeah, I've always had concerns for tariffs because, for one, I'm in an agriculture state. Tariffs one thing we do well in our country is we know how to produce corn, soybeans, beef, and pork at a price that nobody can compete with. And when we go after, say, China's exports, well, they try to block that our ag, and that's true with other countries. So I have concerns about it. I know I was listening to some of the president's advisors saying when we put a tariff on say, China's products, they won't just pass it on to the consumer. They'll reduce the cost if they sell it to us. I'm not convinced that's the case, but I do know this: the president ran on it and he won. So I think we're going to see some tariffs out there, but I think he'll use mainly the threat of tariffs to try to get better trade deals with other countries. And that's what he shared with me, that this is a way to bargain and negotiate with countries so that we get more equitable trade agreements with countries. Right now, we have a huge trade deficit, and even in agriculture right now, and that shouldn't be.
As you know, the president addressed the World Economic Forum in Davos. There's a conversation there about lowering corporate tax rates. The current corporate tax rate under the Trump-passed tax cuts of 2017, 21%. Congressman, do you support lowering that corporate tax rate?
I think it's good right where it's at. Right now, we're at the world's average. My job is to keep us competitive in the world. Before we did the 2017 tax cuts, the tax rate was 35%. And I know a lot of people say, well, there's deductions. Well, in Nebraska, the average company is paying 34%. So there wasn't too big of deductions there, at least from a Nebraskan perspective. 21% is the world's average. And I think that puts us in a good spot. And that allows us to also sustain the tax cuts for the middle class, which was about 20% lower. We reduced taxes by about 20% for the middle class, and we want to sustain that. If we don't extend them, it's going to be a 20% tax increase. And we got to sustain the tax cuts on the S corporations, which is the small businesses that are out there, the mom and pop stores. So I'm for trying to keep stability here, and maybe some tweaks with the tips, maybe some tweaks with the double or overtime. I could also look at maybe reducing the tax burden on our senior citizens that rely only on Social Security because they're having a hard time making ends meet. So I presume these are the areas that we may adjust in this tax law.
I don't want to turn this into the accountant's corner, Congressman, but since you brought up the tax on tip thing, one of the criticisms of the way that President Trump as a candidate described it was lots of people who are not wage earners could claim that they work for tip income. People hedge fund managers or things like that. Do you want legislation to very specifically eliminate people who don't earn middle or working class wages from any of this idea that there's no tax on tips?
The bill that I have caps the income for where you can take this tax credit or have this tax reduction. So it really is, at least the one I have, is focused on working people, working families. Folks are trying to, they're a waiter or waitress and they're trying to pay their way through college. That's what my bill is focused on. And I don't know how this will be written yet at the House level. And I presume President Trump would agree with that, but I really don't know.
But you would agree that's a legitimate issue, that those people who work for wages should have this if their taxes are going to be cut, and those who don't shouldn't.
I would agree. We want to focus on the lower and middle class income earners. That's the goal here. And, I know there's a lot of different folks work in our restaurants. I did. When I was in college, I was a dishwasher. I was a busboy. I worked at fast food. I had to work 2 jobs in the summer. My dad made me. And you're trying to get ahead. So when you're taxing tips on those people, you're making it harder for them to go to school and take a step up the economic ladder. That's what this is focused on.
From one high school dishwasher and busboy to another, Congressman Don Bacon, thanks for your time.
Thank you.